Hello everyone, and welcome to Keough's Korner. We're here at Dover-Sherburne Regional High School, and I am joined today by a new group of student guests from the TV media class. Merritt Sullivan is here. She's 11th grader. Nora Raftery is grade 12, and Jennifer O'Sullivan, also grade 12. So typically what we do is, this is kind of my opportunity to hear from you guys what's on your mind, and I can also tell you what's on my mind, and basically have a set of questions that we work from, but you know, the floor is yours. So so did you have any idea who would go first?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good.
So Jennifer and I are going on senior project soon, and then we'll be leaving to go to college next year. Do you have any advice for us?
I do. I have plenty of advice, but I would say with the senior project, I'm really, really glad that you guys are doing that. I think that you'll find that those kinds of experiences are the ones that you remember. Isn't that amazing? So you go through 12 years of school and you'll do these senior projects, and something about that experience will really click for you and you'll never forget it. So I'm psyched to hear that you're doing that. I hope we expand it. As far as I'm concerned, all seniors doing senior project would be a beautiful thing. Unfortunately, because we are a very competitive school system, that means for some kids it's tough with the AP classes, or if they have a particularly heavy AP load, it's harder to do. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're doing that. And as far as going off into the world, yeah, enjoy it. That's my advice. Enjoy every minute of it, because the next thing you'll know, you'll be 40 years out, like me. 40 years this June. As you guys go across the stage, it will have been 40 years ago, probably to the day, that I had gone across that same stage, and it goes fast. So enjoy it, you know, be yourselves, pursue the things that you think you can do, and don't give up on those things too quickly. I always wanted to be a United States Senator, and I got into a poli-sci class and heard the things that people were talking about and said, I can't compete with these guys, so I got out of that idea. Out of that kind of track of poli-sci. And in retrospect, I think I quit on that way too soon. So that's an example. You know, go after the things that you think you can do, and be confident, because you're coming out of a great, great school system. And you are well prepared. Every kid in this school district is well prepared. Much better prepared than I think most of us know when we leave Dover-Sherburne. So that would be that. Don't forget your roots. You know, you're going to find also when you leave that this is home. Whether you like it or not, it's home. We're townies, we're locals. And when you go off to a semester abroad, and if there's someone there from California versus someone from Natick, chances are you're going to gravitate towards the person from Natick or Medfield, because we have a certain culture that exists in this particular part of the world. And so don't ever forget that. This is home. So what else you got?
Are you working on any projects besides the student, like the New Start Time?
Well, yeah. So there's always a lot going on. I mean, if you think about my job, it's the budget, making sure that we have enough money to pay to operate the place, to have the classes that you guys want to be able to take, or the activities that you want to be able to participate in, and that we can hire the very best teachers and administrators possible. But it's also, as kind of the educational leader, to make sure that the learning experiences for you guys are the most meaningful possible. So you get to be my age, and I've had a lot of different classes, right? 2 different master's degree programs, my doctoral program, college, high school, middle school, and some of those classes were better than others. And we want the classes that you guys to have to be in that better than others category, the best, not ones where you're just feeling like I just got to go through the motions. We want your educational experiences to be really engaging and meaningful. That's the big project. That's the project I'm working on all the time with the leadership team, and that the school committee's on board with. And so we have a strategic plan for the system. And basically the strategic plan was kind of, it's all our goals for the system, like where are we going as a school system? People need to know that, right? So it's my job to make sure that we go after those goals, but those goals were built around what people said they thought Dover Sherburne could do better. So for example, people said, we're really worried about our kids when I got here. It didn't surprise me because my 3 girls came through and I came through. What exactly were they worried about? You can guess. What would parents be worried about the kids here? Stress, intensity, the social emotional piece. Feeling like I don't belong because I don't take 10 AP courses. That would be me. Those kinds of things, those are pressures that are on kids. And the parents said, it's a priority that we deal with some of this stuff. So you're seeing some of that. The start times thing is because we are concerned about the kids not getting enough sleep. When the kids report to us, I get about 6.5 hours sleep a night. That's definitely not healthy. That is not healthy. Someday maybe you'll have children of your own. When you are walking around in a coma because you're not getting enough sleep, you know how hard it is. It's exhausting and it's a dangerous thing for people to not get enough sleep. But for teenagers to not get enough sleep is even more dangerous because you're developing and you're not fully established. And it's hugely important to us. So that's clearly one of the things that we're working on, but it's tied into our goal around social emotional well-being. We do have a goal around kind of innovative teaching and learning experiences. We want the learning experiences to be more than just stand and deliver. Have you guys ever heard of that movie, Stand and Deliver? It's Jaime Escalante.
That was the movie Miss Collins was talking about math.
Oh, yeah. Miss Collins brought that into
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
math
exactly.
teacher
I
taught us
believe
the
it.
problem
I
from the
believe
movie.
it. I believe it. So Miss Collins, yeah, exactly. Her husband was one of my teachers in Wellesley.
I know, you
Which is so
said
awesome.
Wellesley, and I
It's
was
really
wondering
cool.
if you knew it.
It's awesome. And so I remember when they moved up to this area. But so Jaime Escalante, the movie Stand and Deliver is all about how he goes into kind of really poor part of LA, I believe it is. And the kids are like, yeah, well, we're not math students. And he puts the time in and really engages these kids and brings them up to levels of learning that were considered unthinkable. But it was all in how he engaged them and brought them into the process. And stand and deliver is what we say. Well, we don't mean it in a positive way. Stand and deliver education is when the teacher stands at the front of the room and delivers the information and fills up the empty vessels. You guys are the empty vessels, we fill you with the information, you leave, and everything's great. That's actually the worst form of learning. We're not on board with that. It does work for some people, but most people need to have experiential learning, like you're going to have in senior projects. The most meaningful learning experiences for me, with all due respect to Dover Sherburne, actually came from this wilderness camp that I went to, where I had to do survival things. I had to get through a 125-mile kind of canoeing trip, and just those kinds of experiences made a lot of connections in my head that you wouldn't think from camp. I mean, really? What's that got to do with math or English? But there are a lot of interesting connections that happen through this experiential learning. So we love what we do at Dover Sherburne. We're obviously incredibly successful, so there's no desire to change that. But we do want to continue to make sure that you guys have learning experiences that are inspirational. And you know the difference. I would never ask you to talk about learning experiences here that were inspirational versus not so inspirational. But I'll bet you could tell me. Yes? You don't. Okay. So that's always our goal as a system, to improve for you guys. I don't even know how I got there. Okay, this is what happens to me. I go off the topic a little bit. Sorry, guys.
So we also had a question about senior privilege, and we get 15 senior privileges every semester, and we've heard that that comes from the school committee assigning that number, and it's kind of out of your control or out of control of Mr. Smith, but we were wondering what we could do to kind of connect with them to work on that, working on getting us more senior privileges, because I think the reasoning they give is that they want a lot of kids to stay and meet with teachers to keep their grades up, but a lot of teachers don't have the same free blocks as us anyways. They're busy teaching classes and stuff, or you know, if you get below a certain grade anyways, your senior privilege goes away anyways. So I'm not really sure like what the
rationale.
real reasoning is.
So that's a really good question, and there's a lot of kind of pieces to it. I guess the number one thing that comes to mind on it is this. The senior privilege thing came into being. I remember when it happened, actually. Denise Lonergan was the principal, and it did go before the school committee. That's how it came to be. She said, this is something we want to do. The kids brought it forward. In fact, I still remember the guy's name. If it comes to me, I'll say it. But there was a student who really, John something, who pushed for this thing. And he started as a junior. He really, really wanted it. This is actually that kind of learning that I'm talking about. This guy was good. He did the research. He found out what other schools allowed. And he pushed for it, and he presented it, and guess what? The school committee really had no choice but to approve it because he was spot on. And I'd love to have a conversation with him to see if that experience actually changed his thinking about anything in the future, because I'll bet it did. I'll bet it had an impact on his life. And so when you do your senior project, Merritt, maybe your senior project is for the grades that come behind you to do that same kind of research or that kind of initiative in your senior year, and you kind of do the work early in the year but complete it during your senior project, because that's how things get done. So I don't know that it's necessarily out of my hands, because I could certainly support it, right? I made the recommendation to the school committee on the start times. They voted on it, but it was my recommendation by policy. They approved the handbook. So within the handbook are what? All the rules, exactly. So they approved the handbook. So if we have a rule in the handbook that says you get 15 privileges, that goes through them. So ultimately they have to approve it, that's true. But if you guys were able to sell it on the principal and kind of the leaders of the building, the headmaster, Mr. Smith, and the leaders of the building, they may actually then come to me and say, we really think we should support this. Our kids have demonstrated this, that, and the other thing, and they've done a ton of research. They can show us that Wellesley does it, Needham, Wayland, Weston, all the towns that we consider ourselves alike, and there are 10 towns that we consider ourselves alike. If somebody went out and did the research on that and could make a really compelling case, I'll bet you could get it. So that's kind of how it works. I didn't know that when I was your age, but I know it now.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yep, so it's really, man, I wish I could remember his name, because he was impressive. And, it's amazing. Things like senior privileges, it's usually the kids who make it happen.
Yep.
And so, let me ask you this, do kids abuse senior privilege here?
I wouldn't say so.
I wouldn't say so either. Have we had, lots of accidents or vandalism out in the parking lots, or issues with the students misbehaving during senior projects that you're aware of?
No, I haven't heard of any actually.
I don't drive yet, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think what you'll find is that the answer to that is no. Our kids are pretty well behaved and they appreciate having the privilege, so that's part of your data, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing I've learned about Dover Sherburne is they don't like making decisions willy-nilly. They want to know that others are in line with this, that there's data, there's good reason for doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I
That
mean?
makes sense.
Yeah, and I think people know that if something goes wrong, it gets taken away. So a lot of kids are really careful because when you're a senior, the first threat is no more senior privilege.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think if anything, kids are more careful
Mhm.
once they're on senior privilege.
Yeah.
So if you were thinking, like if you wanted to really convince, I just told you about the goals of the district, if you wanted to really convince the school committee and the adults, me, whoever, that senior privileges are a good thing, what's an angle you could take?
Well, I think this is an angle, but it is actually what I think. I think it helps, de-stress students a lot because they get to go with their friends during the middle of the day, socialize with other people besides kids who are just focusing on getting work done during a DR. They, they get to go out and enjoy themselves and pick where they want to eat and
Prepare for college, because
Yeah.
that's what's going to happen in
Exactly.
college.
Yeah, so I think
Exactly.
it's split, like, it breaks up the day, I think, a lot, at least when I go. I don't mind coming back that
Mhm.
much, whereas, sometimes sitting through a DR, if you don't have much to do, can be tough.
Draining.
Yeah.
It's kind of the example, like in the middle school last year, they started having recess after lunch.
Oh, yeah.
yes.
And people are like, ooh, recess after lunch. I mean, isn't that a waste of time? Which is, by the way, what we had when I was a kid here. You got out of lunch and you went over to the junior high. It was the junior high then. And the doors would be locked. You had to stay outside for like 12 minutes. And
so
we had to be
nice.
social with each other in the winter.
Yeah.
I mean, we were outside. And it was actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
In all our wisdom over the years, we decided, oh no, things like that are a waste. That's a waste. That's a time on learning. Well, actually, it's human development, which is more important. It's like hugely important. So you could take that angle that this is really preparation for us, and giving us freedom helps us to kind of bridge that gap to the adult world, which is very stressful for us. It's hard for us. It stresses us out, and this is a way for us to gradually get into it. So that's an angle you could play.
And make it back on time.
Mhm.
You're
Yeah.
only allowed to use 15, so you have to budget your time
Yeah.
and when you'll go
And you might make
all that.
mistakes, right?
yeah.
I had a principal that I worked with once who I loved over in Holliston, Hopkinton. Her name was Jane Meduno. And I remember one time being in a meeting and she said to the school committee, look, we know our kids are going to make mistakes. We'd rather them make them here while we can still teach them. It's kind of the same principle, same idea.
Yeah.
All right, so what else?
This is back onto the topic of the school start time change. We were just wondering how you think that will affect sports and specifically after school jobs, because I know a lot of people, including me, I babysit kids who are at the elementary school and I go there right at 3. And if they're getting out after us and we're getting out, or no, if they're getting out before us and we're getting out after them, I wouldn't personally be able to keep that job, and they'd probably have to find other methods of childcare. So, and other people who just have other jobs in general that start right after school. How do you think that will change?
It's a really good question. And these are the kinds of questions that have been coming up about start times, because after all, we are asking people to change, right? So there's research out there that shows that when you ask people to make big change, there's like almost like a grieving process. Seriously, it's like they go through those whole stages of anger and resentment and then sadness, and it's like this. We're asking people to make a big change, and what I say to people like you, Jennifer, whose schedule might change, I would say that might in fact be the case. You may in fact not be able to do that job anymore. But then again, you might be able to do a job that's a lot better, or you might be so much more rested that you won't need as much time to labor through your homework, because you'll be more rested in the evening so that you can take a job that starts at 3:30 instead of 3. And remember, all of this kind of comes down to priorities. right? So what is our highest priority? What do you think is the number one priority? I wonder if you'll get this. When they ask somebody to be a principal or superintendent and they interview me, right? I mean, it's a grilling. I had spent a whole day over here being interviewed for the superintendent's job, and they came to my school system. What do you think the number one priority is that I should be able to tell them instantly? My number one responsibility. What is
Or
it?
like children's happiness or something.
Well-being.
Their well-being,
Yeah, maybe like the mental health of the students.
the safety. But don't those categories kind of fall into safety?
Yeah.
If kids' well-being is so poor that they're a risk to themselves, then that's a safety concern. It is my number one priority. So I hate to say it, but athletics is not my number one priority. After-school activities is not my number one priority. It's not. My number one priority is your mental health, your well-being, and your safety. The statistics in terms of kids lacking sleep are bad. It's a mental health issue, more accidents, lower achievement. I mean, the list goes on and on. Do the research. We did it. We've done the research. It's bad. So, I was an athlete, not a very good one, but I played basketball here, and it was, part of my world. Moving it out a half hour or 45 minutes would not have been the end of the world for me. I can just tell you that. And as a parent, when my kids were coming through this system, I actually found it to be an incredible inconvenience to have to wait for my kids to get picked up at 8 o'clock in the morning, because I was supposed to be over in Medfield or Wellesley at 7:15. So I was actually inconvenienced by the start times. So everyone has kind of an angle. What we did find was that 70% of the families don't rely on that after-school coverage, which is surprising. 70%. So if it showed like 70% did rely on it, that might have shaped our decision. But we looked at the statistics, and it showed that was not our largest population. So I'm hoping that you and everyone else who's going to adapt will. Just like I've had to over the course of my career. When I went from Medfield to Wellesley, it was a different commute. Or when I was the superintendent in Easton, that was a different commute. I had to change my lifestyle. My kids would say, "Dad, you going to drop me off at school?" No, I'm not, because I have to go this direction. You're going to have to ride the bus. So there were adjustments all along, and I think people will have to make those adjustments. I think they're going to be okay, though. I think that what I would like people to concentrate on is, what are the positive things that are going to come from this? We don't even know yet. Let's just wait and find out. It might actually be a really good thing.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, sorry. Do you see mid-years going away in the next few years? 'Cause I know we had like a little shift with how much they were weighed on our grades from, what was it, 10%?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
5%.
20%.
Yeah.
For our final grade. So what do you think about them possibly going away?
I think it's possible.
Mm.
I definitely think it's possible. A lot of systems have done away with mid-years, kind of in the spirit of challenge success. Are we getting as much bang for the buck? I mean, all the stress and challenges that come out of it, is it worth it? In other words, is it making kids smarter? Are they achieving at higher levels because of these midterms? It's debatable, right? That's why it's not an easy decision. Maybe. Might actually be helping kids. Are they better prepared for college because of it? Could make that a case, right?
Yeah.
So, but places have done away with them. When I was in Wellesley, they had already done away with them, and I started there in 2007. So, and they now they just had finals, and I think they've done away with them too, and have switched over to a different kind of final. So, I do think it's quite possible. What we don't want to lose. This is not all about making this, happy. Everything's wonderful. We don't want to lose kind of the rigorous experience that makes you guys as capable as you are. So I could see us potentially like replacing those exams with some kind of project, for example.
Yeah.
Not like, cute billboard, but like really meaningful deep dive project, like senior projects.
Yeah.
Go out and do the research on it. But something with statistics, say for your math class or whatever, different kinds of culminating assessments. Yes, I could definitely see that happening. I don't know if we'll do away with them.
Changing them a little bit.
Changing them. I
Yeah.
think when I was in Wellesley, I think what we did was we gave people an option, the teachers. You can still give your typical exam, but it can only be for an hour. Or it could be a project. I think that was the change. This was a long time ago now. But we had a change that was something like that. So there were options because, right, for some kids,
Yeah.
they'd rather take the test.
Yeah.
It's more their style. So I know they're having conversations about it, what it should look like. Not necessarily elimination, but what it should look like. After all, this is all about preparing you for the next step.
Yeah.
You will have semester exams, but more likely, you'll have papers. And guess what? You are going to ace those things. People are going to be coming to you to ask you to help them write their papers because you're going to be so good at it. I guarantee it. It's the way it always goes,
Yeah.
especially with the DS kids. And my daughters have all said the same thing. Oh my God, Dad, you wouldn't believe what these kids put forward as a paper. It's embarrassing. Like they could run a business doing that. So you're going to do great.
Maybe that will be the new after-school job.
That's right. There you go. Now you're thinking. See, this is why you're a DS kid. You could do that in a heartbeat. In fact, why don't you start your own little business? How many DS kids have actually done that when you think about it? Started little businesses. I'm serious about that. You could easily make money helping teach kids how to write papers.
Yeah.
Papers that will work for Dover Sherburne, right? If you were in 8th grade, what do you know about writing a paper for 11th grade class or a 12th grade class? But they could learn from you. My youngest was benefited from having older sisters who'd come through here
Yeah.
because they showed him the ropes. Okay, so awesome talking with you guys. We'll do this again.
Yeah.
All right?
Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
All
thank
right.
you.
Good.